You've probably heard people say Pinterest rewards consistency, right? But what does that actually mean? Because here's the truth. Pinterest doesn't just look at your content, it looks at your trust signals. From your website domain and pin descriptions to your engagement patterns, everything you do either builds or breaks what I call the Pinterest trust loop. And it's the reason that some small business owners get instant traction while others they struggle, and for months usually. So today we're going to break down how Pinterest decides who to boost and who to bury, and how you can rebuild momentum if your reach suddenly drops. Hey there, it's been a minute. Hello, welcome back to the Pin and Plan podcast. I'm Lisa, your Pinterest pioneer, Squarespace web designer, and longtime member of the Pinterest business community. You can always find me if you go to the PBC at Body, Mind, Mood. Now, if your Pinterest analytics have ever taken a nosedive and left you wondering what you did wrong, this episode is definitely for you. Now, over the last few years, Pinterest has been doubling down on trust-driven ranking. Okay, so it's not about who pins the most anymore. It's about which small business accounts Pinterest can rely on to give users a great experience, right? That's the name of the game here, a great experience. So if your pins are showing, less often in search, it might not be necessarily an algorithm sort of punishment, but it's Pinterest's trust system technically recalibrating. Okay. Now here's some wild thoughts, because before we get into this, I want to look at what's happening on Instagram quickly and TikTok. Listen to this. On Instagram, your engagement actually drops if you ghost your audience. Did you know that? If anyone knows that, please share in the comments. I didn't know that. I don't ghost my audiences, but there you are. On TikTok, however, you lose reach if your videos aren't watch-worthy. So if they're not like these super quick, cute, fun, engaging videos that are 15 seconds long, then your engagement will start to lose. You start to lose it. And of course, on Pinterest, it's all about whether your account or your links, more specifically, prove trustworthy to both the algorithm and the user. So today we're going to break down exactly what Pinterest looks for before boosting your pins, and what to do if your business account has slipped sort of into that, quiet zone, right? And I think we've all of us on Pinterest can appreciate the quiet zone. I think we've all been there at least once. So let's start by understanding what the Pinterest trust loop actually is. This is what I call it. It's an interesting sort of thing that I've sort of discovered with Pinterest. Now, the trust loop is technically it's a cycle between three main factors, right? Your first factor is content quality. So Pinterest scans your pins for clarity, for accuracy, and alignment. If your pin promises, like, for example, a free guide, but leads to a dead link or leads to a website that maybe is spammy, maybe it's not your site, maybe you're linking out somewhere else, then your trust score actually will drop. Second factor is user behavior. So Pinterest tracks how people interact with your content. Are they saving it, clicking it, or are they just kind of bouncing right away? They're looking at it and going, no, not for me, bye. And then, right? So engagement signals trust, right? So when Pinterest tracks your engagement, they're looking at the trust factor. And lastly, the third factor is your account history. How long you've been consistent, whether your pins perform well over time, and if you've avoided sort of spammy practices. Sort of these things all factor into your Pinterest reputation, okay? Now, when all three work together, Pinterest starts recommending your content more in search, related pins, and generally the home feed. But when one part breaks down, your reach could dip. That's what I call a trust loop break, okay? So it literally breaks the loop. So what breaks the trust loop, and how do you rebuild it? Well, there's a couple of common reasons that you lose sort of Pinterest trust. Now, here are the top 3 trust killers that I see most often for small business owners. Number 1, inconsistent activity. Now, I know that we can all be kind of guilty of this because we run businesses, so we can't always be there 24/7, but inconsistent in that, you're pinning maybe 50 pins in a week, and then you take 2 weeks off, and then you come back and you pin 10 pins one week, and right, that's inconsistent. Okay. If you post in bursts and, right, as I said, disappear for weeks, Pinterest assumes your content isn't reliable. So what's the fix? Aim for slow, steady consistency. 3 to 5 pins, and I would even go 1 pin, maybe even 2 pins a week, honestly. 3 to 5 is kind of the go-to for a lot of people, but I would even say 1 to 2 new pins weekly. Instead of course, 30 in a day. And I have seen people do that. You don't really want to do that. Okay. Second thing that really hurts your trust on Pinterest, weak engagement signals. So this again falls in line with inconsistent activities. So if people scroll past your pins, or they look at a pin and then leave it really quickly after clicking it, Pinterest kind of downgrades them, at least in my opinion. So how do you fix this? Well, you improve your first impressions, right? Test new covers, especially if you're repurposing pins. New covers, make your text more readable, or new text. Lead with outcomes, right? For example, see our 2-week product launch results versus shop updates, something along those lines. Okay. And lastly, the third trust breaker here, the links or domain mismatches. Okay. Now, this has been something that I have talked about over different episodes, and I mean it when I say, if you link out, you need to match. Your link should match where you're telling people to go. It should, like if it's a blog post, it should match the exact blog post. Okay. Pinterest will lose trust when your pins link to new domains that Pinterest maybe doesn't know about, broken pages, or even non-claimed URLs. So the fix is always claim your business domain. Number one, I think we can all safely say we know this, in settings, and update any old links regularly. Now, just bear in mind that if you're updating old links, you will not necessarily keep the same engagement. But that's okay, because new engagement is on the way, right? Now, one broken link can always, it has the ability to literally tank your account health. And probably more than you even realize. So do bear that in mind. So how do you get back in Pinterest good books once your trust score with Pinterest, or your Pinterest love, is kind of dipped? Well, here's how to rebuild it. The recovery process that I generally recommend to my clients, and just to people on the PBC when I've been talking to them in past, is the same one that I use, right? As I said, with clients, and I teach, share in the, I wouldn't say teach, but share in the PBC. So step one, always audit your account. Check for outdated links, low quality pins, inconsistent boards. Delete nothing, right? Move it to a secret board, or if everything that you want to get rid of is on one board, then just archive it. Don't delete it, because if you delete, you will delete all of your engagement. Don't want to do that. Or, right, just stop pinning what's hurting performance. And you probably can see what you're pinning. You probably can see what's actually hurting the performance. Step two, create a 30-day fresh content plan. Okay, Pinterest loves newness. Yes, they do. Fresh can mean new graphics or updated descriptions for your best performing products or posts, right? Or your pins. You don't have to necessarily recreate the wheel. Step three, re-engage authentically. Okay, save pins from other small businesses, comment thoughtfully, right? And interact like a real human being. I mean, we are humans, even if we're using tech. Pinterest rewards active pinners, not just active posters. Okay. Step four, focus on your top boards. When you go into your analytics, you know which boards are performing the best. Focus on them. Don't spread your pins across 20 boards. Stick to your top 5, maybe 8, maybe even 3 boards, and strengthen those niches. I have seen people on Pinterest who have an amazing following and viewership based solely on like 3 boards. So it's not impossible to do. And step 5, use really rich context. Pinterest AI reads everything. I've been saying this for months, right? And I've been putting it out there early. Titles, descriptions, and any alt text add clear keyword rich context to every single pin. Okay? Every single pin. Now, let's zoom in on what Pinterest is actually looking for before it actually boosts a pin. So think viral, but maybe not completely viral. Pinterest decides whether to feature your content. So in doing so, it evaluates 3 things in real time: your relevance, your trustworthiness, and engagement probability, right? So the probability of people actually engaging. So under relevance, think of it, your pin is matching current search trends and user intent. Check Pinterest analytics, check your the Pinterest trends, right? Get on board with like what's trending. Trustworthiness. Does the landing page deliver what you promised in the pin? This is something I have seen people do so many times over the years where they say, go here, do this, you'll get this. Here's the outcome. They get there and it's like it's like a black hole of pins. Okay. Engagement probability. How likely is this pin to drive saves or clicks? Take my 3-second pin test on the PBC. You'll find it there. Now, if your content scores high, like sort of like in all three, you're looking at what you're listening to what I'm saying, and it scores high, Pinterest starts testing your pin, and it pushes it out to smaller audiences first. If engagement holds, then it definitely will widen the reach. Okay? So it immediately looks at relevance, trustworthiness, and engagement probability. If it scores high in all of three of those, Pinterest then starts with a small group of people. Then if the engagement holds, then it starts to widen the reach. That's why you'll sometimes see pins suddenly sort of, wake up, if you will, after weeks. You've posted something, it did nothing, and then all of a sudden, boom, shakalaka, you've got all this engagement. Now, what that means is they've been reinserted into a new test loop. Okay? And that, my friends, is the power of the Pinterest trust loop. Okay? And it is powerful. So don't ignore it. It's always on, it's always learning, and it's always adjusting behind the scenes. It's not something you see specifically, but it is there. Okay? Now, on to my favorite part of the show, the Pin and Plan Pioneer Tip of the Week. So, here's my tip. Treat your analytics like a trust dashboard, not a report card. Don't look at it like you would a report card, right? It's a trust dashboard. It's telling you. Look at your top performing pins and ask yourself, what does Pinterest trust about this? Is it the topic, the format, the image clarity, maybe the description, maybe the title of the pin, right? Then if you know what it is, what you want to do then is replicate that trust signal or signals across your next 2 pins or 3 pins or 4 pins. It's not about guessing trends. It's about repeating what Pinterest already believes works for your small business. Okay, so bear that in mind. And again, on to another section of my show that I absolutely love doing is the Real PBC Q&A, and it's from a PBC member, so let's do this. My business account used to perform so well, but now my product pins barely get impressions. Did Pinterest shadow ban me? So let me just start off by saying I really don't like the word shadow ban. I've dealt with this before. Shadow ban in my mind, and I've even listened to the head guy at Instagram on some of his posts. So here's how he explained it, and I believe it kind of works across the board. Pinterest, like Instagram, like TikTok and Facebook, they have a set of community guidelines. When your topic, your posts, your pins, maybe your business or is on that line, there's a fine line, okay? But you haven't quite crossed over that line, but you're on the line, right? And you're pushing up against those community guidelines. To my mind, Pinterest does what all of the other platforms do. It minimizes what is seen because it doesn't like what it's seeing, right? And you're so close to those community guidelines, they don't like it. That's my take on shadow banning. Now, here's what I've said in my answer. Pinterest doesn't shadow ban business accounts. What you're seeing is a trust recalibration, right? So it's looking at your pins, it's looking at your content, and because you're so close to those community guidelines, it's questioning the trust, the trustworthiness, if you will. Okay? And it happens after long breaks, broken links. It can even happen after just maybe a few low performing pins in a row. So the system is cautious until it sees consistent quality again. Bear that in mind. Focus on fresh pins, clean links, aligned descriptions for a few weeks or months even, and you'll start to see your traction returning faster than you think. Okay. The other thing you need to consider that I did not put in my answer to this community member was that things like advertising, pop-ups, things that are flashing. So if you create a pin, People are really interested in it. You've linked it out to your site. Maybe your site does a lot of the advertising, and you see this a lot with people who do recipes and cooking. I don't, to my mind, Pinterest does not like it. And a lot of times it will sort of downgrade that. You might have a lot of views, but not necessarily engagement or trustworthiness. Or you could start to see your pins drop off. And a lot of that will have to do with, for example, those pop-ups, right? If you look at the guidelines, the community guidelines, and you look at the requirements for pins and content, you'll find that they don't want that in it. Okay? Now, that was quick but efficient. It was good, right? So that's a wrap on episode 18, the Pinterest Trust Loop, what the platform looks for before boosting your pins in search, and how to get your content back on track after a dip. Here's the key takeaway. Pinterest doesn't punish small business owners. It protects its users, right? There's a difference there. When you prove your content is consistent, it's safe and valuable, it'll boost you again. Stop chasing the quick fixes. Build the trust. Take the time. I know people want to do it fast. Take the time, build the trust, pin with purpose, and stay consistent. Now, next week in episode 19, we're talking about, inside the Pinterest business community, it's all about trust in the PPC, how the Pinterest business community actually helps small business owners grow in 2025. This is an episode you don't want to miss. And I'll be breaking down what's happening behind the scenes in the PPC, why it matters, what kind of business owners thrive there, and how you can use it to shape your Pinterest strategy and, well, maybe even land a feature. So until then, keep pinning with purpose, and I will see you inside the PPC or Pinterest business community. Bye for now.